Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on career management roles and responsibilities. This is part of the wider Student to Stemette program that the Stemettes are running in coordination with the Born to Be program at Deutsche Bank. So thank you for joining. My name is Anne-Marie Imafidon, and I'm Head Stemette on the Stemettes project, and I'm going to be your host this evening. And so this evening, we have got three ladies lined up to speak to you. One from the angle of recruitment within STEM, one who is from the angle of academia, and STEM and academia, and the final speaker will be from industry, and she's an industry STEM speaker. They're going to be speaking about career development and how to develop your career, and they're going to be talking about things like taking responsibility for your career development, how to maintain useful skills and maybe grow your skill set in terms of managing your own career, and they're going to be talking about taking the initiative and looking for ways to improve your self-awareness. So there's a lot that we've got coming up today. Just so you know, we're going to be tweeting from the hashtag SDS14, which I've got up here on the slide, from the main student Stemettes Twitter account. So if you want, or if any of your friends want, you can follow along on there, and we're taking kind of public notes up there. We're also recording this session as well for all of the girls, future girls to join the program, but also those who can't make it this evening. If you want to communicate with us at any point, then do write in the chat in the bottom right-hand corner and just type something there. And you can select it just to come to the presenter, or you can select it to come to Stemettes HQ, which is what we're signed in as. And we'll be able to pick up your questions, any queries, and if you're having problems with maybe hearing us as well in there. Brilliant. So without further ado, I'd like to go straight into our three speakers. The first of whom is joining us from Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and her name is Dee Clarke. Dee, I'm going to unmute you now.
Everyone.
Well, Dee, do you want to unmute yourself then? So you've muted yourself. Oh, brilliant. There you go. Fantastic.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. So it's my pleasure to talk to you today on the subject of career management. So my name is Dee Clarke, and I head up campus recruitment at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. So I manage the team that recruits university students from all over Europe. We have quite a large program. We recruit around 200 interns, and they're currently with us at the moment. So my background has predominantly been in career services as well as graduate recruitment. So what I wanted to do today is just share with you some learnings and some advice that I've just seen through my experience to help you start to think about your career plan and how to make the most of the next transition. So what I'd like to do really is just to talk you through briefly a career step plan that might be useful for you to leverage. So if we look at step one, no matter where you are in your career, so whether you're a current student or you're coming towards the end of your course or you've just started, in your career life, what you need to do before you kind of go into the complexity of finding a role is just take stock at where you're at the moment. So, for example, you could be in a position where, you've still got to do quite a lot of research, or you might be in a stage where, you're still at the exploratory stage. You also might be in a position where, you need to really think about where do you see yourself going in terms of, the next steps. So taking stock around, where are you at the moment, and then moving into that step two would be around exploring what options are available to you right now. So it could be, for example, that you need to create options because at the moment you don't feel like you have the right opportunities around you, or it could be that at the moment you feel overwhelmed and there's too many options. So how do you actually break down what are actually your real options and things that you want to really drill down on? I think sometimes when you're starting out your career journey, It can feel overwhelming because there are so many different industries, lots of different companies, different routes and ways of getting into firms. But actually, as you start to break down what you're really interested in, you can start to really focus, your action plan. So, for example, I remember when I was at university, I didn't really have as many options available to me as there are right now. And so what I needed to do actually was a lot of research and create conversations with people in different lines of business that I thought I was interested in to find out what they did. So I set up informal chats or spoke to friends and family. I used my career services. I used my alumni network to actually, drill down on what I was interested in, and from there I made like 2 or 3 real choices on where I was going to focus my efforts. And I see students do that all the time, and that's a very successful way of actually carving out a career plan. So with that, the analyze phase is linked into that. So in terms of where do I want to go, from your actual options, you can then bring that down into 1 or 2 or 3 scenarios, and that could be around different industries or different roles. And then in terms of step 4, the acting, which is always, the tricky bit, because you've got lots of information at that stage. You've managed to think about, some of the main choices, and then where is your skill gap? Where is the gap? So what do you need to do to get from step 1 to step 4? And this could be, do you need to build your CV? Do you have a network that's strong enough, in terms of the different sectors? Do you need introductions? Do you need to get more exposure, to build up your CV and your experience? And where can you actually, use your resources around you to get to that step 4? So this stage is also just helping you to think around these different phases and assess, as the slide just mentioned earlier, what you need to do in order to marry, your interests and your passion is really think about what you're interested in. So you might, for example, be studying a course that you're finding that it's actually not as applicable to your future interests as you thought when you started the course. But the good news is with graduate recruitment and the way companies work is they focus on transferable skills. So, for example, thinking about the students that we hire, we're a bank, but actually half of our class is studying non-finance or non-economic degrees. So we have students from humanities, from science, from engineering, from all sorts of backgrounds. And so actually what they've been able to do is talk about why they're actually interested in our sector. And so what you need to do is think about, what makes you tick, what excites you at the moment, and start to gravitate towards those. I think it's really good to know what you don't want as well. So really don't explore options when you really feel that this doesn't play to your strengths or interests, because you can waste, a lot of valuable time. And again, it's really helping you to focus on pursuing the conversations and the networks that you have that are going to get you closer to that final step 4. So you need to also do a bit of an internal SWOT analysis. So SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So thinking about what are your strengths, you need to think about what is your brand, what stands out about you. So if you were a company and they were looking at you right now, or you're wanting to think about why should you think about moving in a certain sector, what's going to help them to think about you as a top choice to hire? And so taking that time to actually take stock around you is really important. And then in terms of confirming your thinking after you've done the self-assessment, it's really important to get very good feedback. And so here what I've pointed out on this slide is trying to get feedback from people who've worked with you, trying to get feedback from professors, trying to get feedback from, peers in your group or different people that you've had exposure to see where is your skills gap and where do you actually need to focus on, building up, some of the things that you're lacking in terms of where you need to be. And that can be on the soft skills, but it could also be on some of the more technical skills that you might need to build on in order to get your dream job. As I alluded earlier, brand is very important, and one of the things that students and people when they're starting out on their career search tend to miss is that you also need to think about what you bring to the table. So although of course the career journey is about you and getting yourself into your dream job and thinking about where you're going to evolve your career, but also when the company and the people that you're speaking with in terms of your network are also wanting to see what will you bring to the table table, and what is your actual brand. So when you're speaking to companies or when you're networking or whatever you're doing in terms of your job search, you need to know your story. You need to say, you know, what you're good at, what you enjoy, why you actually having a conversation around this type of role or job. So what's in it for the individual or for the company to speak to you, to get to know you. So have your story really concrete, and know, you know, why you're different from the person sat next to you in terms of what you bring to the table. So I think sometimes students can lose sight of that, and I think what's really important is to really know yourself and be self-aware. So thinking about that final stage, which is ACT, and that can be obviously the harder part because it's actually getting things done. Some of the ways that you can actually get experience is to think around the education side. So if you look at the experience piece on this slide, where you're thinking around where you might have a bit of a gap in terms of your experience, these are ways you can actually really get exposure and help you to explore as well as actually analyze. So you can actually think about, how do you get job shadowing? How do you speak to, you know, people in your network, people at university to give you some on-the-job shadowing to actually see what the job's like? How can you get involved in different projects, and that's within your university setting, or whether you're doing an internship, or whether you're having, you know, a project that you're working on? How can you get exposure to that and put that on your CV and build out your skills? Thinking about all types of opportunities that come your way, you know, do say yes to things. These are actually going to build your confidence as well as helping you to have more things to talk about when you're networking. And then, as I said, just keep getting feedback along the way to see how you're doing and where you need to, you know, build your skill set further. And then, you know, finally, I put here talk to manager, but it might be that, you know, you might not be in the work profession yet, but constantly looking out and seeking opportunities to make sure that you are making sure you're getting to that ACT stage. So hopefully that's been able to give you a 4-stage plan in terms of what you can do to kind of, you know, break down the planning stage. But the main thing is also to have fun and to make sure, you know, you're really getting closer to that dream job. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dee. Kept the time, but also very punchy. And we've got a lot of notes and a lot of tweets out on Twitter. So thank you very much, Dee. And Dee will be joining us again at the end of the webinar. So if you do have any questions, you'll have the opportunity to ask them shortly. So Dee has just spoken from the recruitment perspective. As you heard, she's a recruiter at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. We're now going to change direction slightly and go to our academics for this evening, who is Dr. Sarah Bohndiek from Cambridge University. Sarah, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, sorry, you have to unmute yourself, Stephen, because you're a presenter. Brilliant. And take it away, Sarah.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you very much for the introduction there. I'll just get my webcam set up. There we go. So Dee gave a really great introduction to some of the things that you need to do in order to start to build your career development plan. And leading in from that, the first thing that she really highlighted there was about building up towards acting on getting more experience. So first thing I'm going to talk about is how you try new experiences. And obviously I'm coming at this from a university perspective. So here we're thinking about ways that you can try out different types of science, maybe different engineering and different mathematics roles that you may in the future want to experience. So a good start here is just to actually get familiar with the different institutions that are actually out there. And for all of the different sciences, there is a core representative. So for example, in my field in physics, the Institute of Physics runs a lot of different programs where you can gain information about what it's like to be a physicist, and you can read the news articles and blogs on their website, which give you some indication of what people who are working in the field actually do. And an overall kind of summary of this is given at the British Science Festival, which happens every year in September, and that can be a great place to go and get exposed to a lot of different science that's going on in the UK and interact with people from different career stages who have maybe at similar stage to you but have been involved in particular research placements, or people who are further along in their careers. Now, following on from that, one stage up might be to take part in a job shadowing, something that was there on these slides right at the end. And this is something that can be really interesting. It will give you an opportunity to see how other people work, and you can arrange this maybe just by contacting people who are in your local community who work in a STEM field. And you can build on that a little further and maybe volunteer to work in a local university, or if you're interested in medicine, maybe in a local hospital, or even in an independent engineering consultancy or other type of firm where you might be able to get some similar work experience. Now, moving up a little bit from that, a lot of companies are very willing to offer work experience. So, for example, when I was transitioning from my GCSEs to my A-levels, I did a 1-week placement with the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, where I worked with their astronomers looking at development of some public outreach programs. And I also did a 1-week work experience placement at Computer Active magazine, which is made by Danish Publishing Group. And I spent a week in their offices writing review articles for their magazine and doing some sub-editing. So both of those experiences really helped me to decide at that point, because I was really struggling to work out whether I wanted to go into journalism or into science. And ideally, I wanted to do something that combined those fields. So working there also opened a lot of doors. I found that the people were very friendly and very open, and in both of those cases I was able to then go and spend a longer extended placement with the team over summer vacations. And this is something that really comes in when we start to think about where you go next, so growing your skills. How do you go from getting experience in different from what you might like to do in the future to actually arming yourself with the skills that you need to achieve that? And internships is one of the ways that you can do that. So typically these would take place over a summer vacation period and be anywhere between 4 weeks and 8 weeks long. And the internships are available in a wide range of different industries. In my particular area, in academic research, if you'd like to get some hands-on experience in how to do science, one great opportunity comes from the Nuffield Research Foundation, where they actually offer research placements to sixth form students to apply to work in a university and be paid for the privilege as well. So these kinds of schemes, sometimes you can get apply through these research foundations, and other times universities will actually advertise them themselves. So whichever is your local university, have a look at the different departments that are there, and if there's someone who's working in an area where you'd like to gain experience, then write to that person and see if you can go to visit them for a longer placement over the summer. There are a lot of other ways to grow your skills. So typically when you're studying at school level, maybe GCSE or A-level, or even in the early university years, you can expand the qualifications you're studying to try and get experience in different areas. And even simple things like teaching yourself a programming language would be really valuable from the perspective of having a STEM career. It shows motivation, it shows that you're able to logically organize code and structure what you want to achieve. And you may even need to use it in the STEM career that you choose. On top of that, both writing skills and the ability to do mathematics to an advanced level are normally quite useful. And so you could, for example, study towards an additional qualification like a step exam for mathematics, or take some initiative and write your own essays or examples on areas that you're particularly interested in, just to get experience in outlining and formatting reports. Now, obviously, all of this is a great challenge, and a passion for STEM subjects often actually comes from a desire to learn new ideas and be challenged. And as a result of that, we often find that we want to be developing new concepts and working in areas that people have not done before. We often don't know anyone in these areas, and we have to show motivation to find contacts and make connections that aren't obvious to us in the first place. And by its very nature, that does mean that we will often fail. You may contact a large number of different people and not receive responses, or receive negative responses. But you have to remember that if you don't succeed at first, then you just have to try again. And perseverance will be something that will be key to be able to build that skill set and develop and manage your research plan. So finally, just one thing that I wanted to touch on is that juggling study, work, friends and family can be quite challenging, and developing your career above all else is really about being the best that you can be and being successful in what you choose to do. despite that, you do also need to be happy and have time for things outside of your career and outside of work. And what you really need to achieve that is good organizational skills and good time management. This will all develop over time, but what you should think about at this stage in terms of your career plan is prioritizing what you really want to do. Going through that 4-step plan that Dee presented is actually very valuable, and identify what you need to do to achieve that goal. Once you have that, then it's a very simple approach to just make a study schedule, a time schedule for when you want to achieve those goals. And it's important then that you manage to balance your study for work, your career development, and your normal life. So there's a lot of things there that I've touched on that are all very specific to the university route, but of course I'm happy to take questions at the end that might be more general.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was fantastic. Again, thanks for bringing it from the academic perspective, but also showing that there is overlap. So it's great that this is a tool set that whether you're going for academia or whether you're going into industry, it's all the same, being aware of that work-life balance, being aware of being able to pursue work experience and everything else that you mentioned, and also perseverance, I think, is a big one as well to take away from what you said. Thank you very much. And as Sarah said, she will be around as well after we've heard from our third speaker. So what I'd now like to do is take a quick pause before we hear from our third speaker and do a poll. Those of you that were on the webinar with us last month will remember that we did a poll with you to talk about mentors and what you might look for in a mentoring relationship. Today we're going to do a poll about personal development. So today we are talking a lot around career development and what it takes to develop your career and to find the right kind of roles that you might be interested in. Some of you, or a lot of you, are on our mentoring scheme at the moment, and we've asked you to document what the process has been like and what you've learned and what you've gained as you've gone along on this mentoring scheme, but also on your career journey over the next couple of months. So what we thought we'd ask today is what new evidence will you keep track of in your personal development file? So Dee's mentioned some of this, Sarah's actually mentioned some of this as well, in terms of developing as a person, asking for feedback, maybe going on extra courses and going up for extra qualifications, and maybe even just writing down plans and that kind of thing. So just to hear from yourself, since we can't hear from you via your voices, if you'd like to vote to let us know what you're thinking of in terms of keeping track of your personal development. Voting starts now. Got some countdown music maybe for this part of the webinar. So a third of you have voted, so girls keep voting. And I guess our presenters can vote as well if you want. How do you keep track of your personal development? Nearly there, 2/3. That final third who aren't voting. Oh, keep going. Nearly there. I think we have a winner now. Well, not a winner, but most common. Cool. So from the votes we can see, from the responses we can see that most of you are going to keep track of feedback that you collected on your personal development file. And that's brilliant to know, and it's good to know that you're going to be looking for feedback and using that. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of feedback you get. From your first meeting you've had with your mentor, we've already asked you to kind of think about yourselves and your own perceptions of yourselves and do some testing and maybe compare them. So the other thing that you might want to do in keeping feedback in your personal development file is trying to compare what the feedback looks like maybe over time, but also see whether there's anything that comes up as a recurring theme, because that might be something that you then prioritize when you think about filling in your skills gap or even looking for certain opportunities. So thanks for taking part in that poll. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our third speaker for this evening, who's coming from industry. So it's Hayes-Thakore. and she is with Arm Holdings Plc. And again, B, I think you're a presenter, so you should be able to unmute yourself and also advance the slides.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be talking to you today. So just a quick 2 seconds about myself. I'd like to take you through my career path. My background's an engineer, so what I'd like to bring to you is just sort of a path and the options that are available to an engineering graduate. So some of you may be considering engineering as a career path or as a degree at university, and hopefully a little bit of my journey would be helpful for you to understand what sort of industries you can work in and what types of engagements are available. So we'll go through those different ways in which, whether it's traineeships, whether it's internships, and permanent roles or consulting that is available as a long-term career option. So I work at Arm Holdings Plc. I actually started to work for Arm, who are a chip manufacturer. They make processing chips that go in mobile phones or computers or any embedded device. You may have heard of Raspberry Pi or Arduino and may have had the chance to interact with these microcontroller boards if you're interested in programming. If you're not, you can certainly use some of these to do some very exciting DIY projects at home and learn coding at the same time. And I've had the chance to work with some of these types of gadgets and devices through my career. So both of those are Arm products, and we're very. I'm available on Twitter as well to take you through some of the questions you may have about how to get started on programming. Can I have the next slide, please? There we go. So a quick recap of how I've got to Arm, perhaps. I'm born in India. I did all my schooling in India, and I was very fascinated with planes, having grown around an airfield. My parents certainly had a preference that I go and do a diplomatic role in an administrative political role, but at the age of 13 I was able to opt for an aptitude test, and you can certainly ask your schools if they offer something like this. It's basically a test that can tell you what your logical inclination is towards different subjects. I was strong at science and math subjects, but I very much enjoyed the application of them in real life, and that's why I got interested in engineering. I came to the UK to do my engineering degree. My first degree was a Master's of Engineering in Aerospace Sciences and Engineering, and that's actually quite a long course, and through that I was able to take job internships and work experience that was already talked by Sarah and Dee. I interned for a year at Rolls-Royce and worked on jet engines, and realized that I really actually enjoyed working on something that is quite futuristic, that really takes the most complex principles and applies them in a really simple way. And I took on further studies to go and do a second master's from the International Space University. I did this with a mixture of management and wanted to understand how to establish businesses and how to grow businesses. And to my surprise, they're very similar. They're actually quite similar, at least take similar interests from people. So I think that's quite a nice mixture. Having worked at the International University as a research assistant, I got a flavor of what it is to work in academia, and my primary field of research was in planetary robotics. And working my management interest, I was able to help the university set up new labs for robotics and also do projects in industry. One of my clients was Lego, and had the chance to build a robot that would land on the surface of the moon, and you'd be able to interact with it through the internet and through connectivity. So that's a very interesting application of some of the principles of robotics and some of the design work that I used to do very much through my researchship. Since then, I've come to gain a much better understanding and much greater respect for how much goes into making the electronics world around us move and function, and our devices that do so many complex tasks and aid lives in so many ways. So I set up my own company called Bohndiek Solutions, which was a consultancy, and I worked for several engineering companies through that, working on some very interesting applications of engineering, like using the same software and algorithms, i.e. principles that we use in robotics, to apply them to malarial tracking. Through this process of discovery, I'm now working to help many companies around the world launch the next generation of technology through our semiconductor processes. But my passion for that started off as a kid admiring planes has really not, is still very much part of my daily life, and I moonlight as a board director at the Planetary Society, helping drive citizen science projects, helping shape policy and space policy particularly, with the ultimate aim that we will work towards landing people on Mars very soon. So I think as an engineer, Sarah made a great point around balancing work and life. I'm married to an engineer. We have a house full of interesting projects that we get involved in, and for me, this has become a way of life really, but also something that allows me to appreciate everyday use of technology very much. So in terms of what has made career decisions, I think if you are looking to go in and choose a subject for university, one of the things that helped me the most was asking what excites me most about this particular course or this particular job. Later on in life, I've had the chance to change different fields, go from academia into industry, and a lot of this has resulted from asking that question again and again. When you're changing sectors, perhaps through working in industry as well, it's a process of discovery and options, and having a good network of contacts that you can discover these options with has been very helpful. So like you're on the mentoring scheme, I would suggest that you create a healthy relationship with your mentors, keep them a constant point of checking whether you want them to be a sounding board, asking actively for their advice, or also connecting with other mentors informally, and even offering them your help. So when I connect with someone on LinkedIn, you will often find that I will be wanting to know how I can help them. Was there a particular reason why they contacted me? Is there something that they found interesting? Or is there something that we have in common? So I seek conversations, and I think that is something that I really appreciate in people around me who contacted me, or it's a generally good practice to have. Also, a key thing to do with a good network of contacts is asking for feedback, whether it's a company, a customer, whether it's someone you worked with in the past, your tutors at university. You should be asking for feedback and ways in which you can develop. So this point has been made a couple of times, but look out how you can challenge yourself, and then being able to take that chance becomes much easier. When you're also looking for different options and trying to understand all the different ways in which you can form a fulfilling career, you may also want to consider volunteering with groups. So I've been able to keep both my space interests and my robotics work very active through my participation as a volunteer with organizations like the Space Generation Advisory Council for Youth. This is an organization that runs a very active forum and projects list for young people to get involved in, such that they can, whatever their interests are, whether it's policy or engineering, they can get involved with a group of other volunteers and be part of a field. And this also allows you to actually, one, create a contact base in a new industry, or explore what really ticks you and what really makes you, what really makes you gel with this particular industry. I think it's really great that you're already on the scheme, but do keep asking for help, do keep asking for that special project, the job shadowing opportunity that's been mentioned a couple of times. But certainly punting out those options and those interests can really lead to some very, very interesting opportunities your way. And I would also say is that I've been a mentee and a mentor, and I've found that actually the mentor gains just as much from that relationship. In fact, the questions you ask are so important to mentors, and I would suggest that you in turn also mentor younger kids who might have faced the same kind of questions that you have done in the past. So one of the things I wanted to really highlight today is the type of future STEM skills, and I've used this previously at a Stemettes event in 2012. I was very, very impressed that those skills have not changed radically in the last couple of years, but certainly a huge amount of demand in the future and in the near future exists on people who can understand technology, understand the living world as well, so biology and science, climate science is so much there to be solved. So there are particularly skills around being able to know about how hardware and software works. So if you're learning a programming language, that's something that I would highly, highly advise. Taking an interest in terms of reading the latest research that is coming out, keeping up to date with the most recent developments in your field is also very important, and that may guide you because a lot of these STEM fields are evolving at quite a rapid pace. And certainly a huge amount of feedback is helpful in mapping out the areas in which you would need to develop for the move that makes you most excited. So I think those are the key things that I think will drive. I'll make the chart available for you to discover. I'm sure you could explore the different options, and perhaps you can have conversations with your mentors about them. With that, I will stick around, and I'm very happy to answer your questions, both the ones that you raise here, and I'm also on Twitter. It's been very exciting to see some of the tweets that you all already been placing during this seminar. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bea. Thanks for a lot that you touched on there, and we saw a lot of feedback actually on Twitter as well that's come back from some of the points that you touched on that were maybe repeats of earlier. So in our final, we've got about 15 minutes left until we close and get off the line. In our final couple of minutes, if you've got any questions, either tweet them to us via the STS14 hashtag or to the @StudentToStemette account, or you can type them in on the chat on the left-hand side. I've got a couple of questions as well to kick off. Someone's asked, will the recording be available? Yes, the recording will be made available via the main Student to Stemette website. After the webinar is over, it takes about 5 minutes normally for it to process, and then we put the link straight up onto stemettes.org/STS. So we will make the recording available. If any of you have any questions for our speakers as well, don't be afraid to put them in. What I'd like to do is, I've got a number of questions here just to warm us all up, and I'll probably go in order actually. So for D, I'd like to come back to you to ask you a question about what aspects of work experience do you find help people progress the most? So what exactly is it that you think people gain from the work experience that they do that helps them to move forward a lot more in their careers?
Yeah, so when we meet with students and also for interviews, you will be asked to draw on your experience in terms of examples. So we use a lot of competency questions in the interviews that we conduct. And so it's always, can you talk me through an example when you've demonstrated teamwork? Can you talk me through a time when you've had to show leadership? Have you worked in a situation where you've had to use your problem-solving skills? So it's great if then you can also make reference to work experience. And this doesn't have to be, paid work experience or work experience that is an actual formal internship. It can be anything where you're actually doing something practical and you're actually doing something where you can, really use these transferable skills to talk about what you've learned. When we actually meet with students, what we're looking for is potential. So we're trying to look at someone's potential, and we recognize that someone might not have actually done the job already. What we want to see is how could they cope with, a new experience? Have they got skill sets that would enable them to be successful? And so the work experience just gives the student, confidence and allows you to draw on a range of experiences that demonstrate you're the right person for the job. So I would totally encourage that. And it also gives you an opportunity to find out what you don't like and what you do like as well. So try before you buy.
Fantastic. So it's all about trying before you buying, really, with the work experience. Thanks very much for that, Dee. Sarah, got a question for you on how did you reach your present position? So I think you touched on it a little bit, your role that you've got at the University of Cambridge. Can you maybe walk us through your career path and the decisions that you've made to get you to your current position?
Sure. So I was always very interested in studying science, and I guess, as I mentioned, when I was transitioning from GCSE to A-level, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go into kind of communication aspects of the role or go directly into working in science. And it was really at that stage that work experience was really valuable for me. That was where I actually got the first exposure to what it's like to actually work in a scientific environment versus working in a journalism environment. And I found both of them very stimulating, but I found I was just really attracted to doing more science. And so that's why I went on to pursue that at university. So what I do now is actually a very interdisciplinary role in science. So I'm trained in physics as an undergraduate degree, and I also did a PhD degree after that in physics. But I actually work in cancer research now, and so my role is actually one where I take developments that are going on in physics and engineering and I try and apply them to problems in cancer biology with the goal of helping to overcome drug resistance of cancer in the future. And how I got into that was actually, again, by experience. I started to look around for internships when I was doing my degree, and I spent 8 weeks one summer at University College in London, where I worked on a project which involved building a CT scanner from scratch. So I'd seen CTs in the hospital before, but I'd never seen what happened inside them. And I was given the bits and pieces and asked to put one together for a particular project that they were running at that time. And I found it so exciting to be able to, actually build one from myself and do the design and put the pieces together and optimize the system to the point where at the end of the 8 weeks, I actually could do a CT scan on my own home-built system, that I decided that experimental science was definitely the thing that I was going to do forevermore.
You need to teach me that, I guess. I want to help people home. Thank you very much, Sarah. And to go back to B again, I wanted to ask you, so you touched on a number of different decisions that you made in your career on your way, kind of very varied, to switch from one industry to another and from academia back into industry as well. Is there anything that you wish you'd done differently looking back?
I think that's an interesting question. I think I would have asked for help a lot more earlier, even when I was at school, perhaps, because that help was quite hard to find in terms of where were the best universities for the subject I wanted to study and which was the closest subject to my interest, perhaps. So, I was fascinated with flight and the ultimate sort of goal was to go and study space, but that wasn't really offered on any university degrees. So I remember asking for, at my school and others, but I came from a very small town in India, so I suppose with the internet and other things now, it is much more accessible, this information, and I would have asked for much more guidance from mentors and others to help shape a more direct path. But I really enjoyed the journey, to be honest. So yeah, that's what I would have done differently.
Thank you very much, B. So Dee, we've got a question in from one of the girls on the Any meeting, and she's asking, as a recruiter, do you know whether Russell Group universities are seeking students through clearing? Do you have any insight on that at all, Dee?
Hello?
Hi, yeah, you're off mute. Go for it.
Sorry, it didn't connect properly. I missed the question.
Okay, it's just, as a recruiter, are Russell Group universities seeking students through clearing? Do you know, are you aware?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because we, although we do go to, of course, the Russell Group universities, we actually accept applications from universities all over Europe. So as a graduate recruitment team, we're constantly looking for talent at all types of universities. So effectively, we don't screen just on a university. We actually look at each application individually. So I think this year, for example, we had about 40% of our interns coming from non-Russell Group universities, which I think is really interesting.
Okay. And maybe, Sarah, you might be able to speak to that a little bit as well. Do you know whether Cambridge is taking students via clearing at the moment? You're on mute, by the way. Sarah, you're on mute, I think. Oh, yeah, you're unmuted now. Go for it.
Thanks for passing the question. I actually, from our perspective at Cambridge, it's a slightly different application system because it goes through the colleges rather than through the main university, so we tend not to use the clearing system.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Sarah. B, we've got a question for you from Twitter. It says, how did you find working in robotics? Were there lots of opportunities open to you, and did you enjoy? Were there lots of opportunities open to you, and did you enjoy the practical side?
So absolutely. I'm going to do it in a different order. Did I enjoy it? Absolutely, yes. And mind you, I still sort of continue developing these, parts of what I work on do go into robotics. So it's still very interesting to see the practical implementation of it. Robotics, in terms of an industry itself, is it's growing very rapidly. And it's the different, I suppose, the different applications of it, whether it's in mining, whether it's medical robotics, whether it's actual robotics that are assistive in nature, whether both to people with injuries or helping patients rehabilitate. And there will be a whole host of I suspect robotic implementations as we have more and more intelligent devices coming up. So certainly that field has a lot of options. As I said in my 10 minutes, I think it's important when you are in an evolving field to keep track of what is being published as research papers and understanding the direction in which some of the latest thinking and discovery around an application is going. And that would help you guide and have a much more educated view of the options available in the area of robotics you're interested in. And certainly I really, really enjoyed the practical implementation of it. Working both in medical robotics and planetary robotics, those fields demand very different trade-offs from engineering standpoint, and there is one thing to have a design on paper and another to really actually make it work, so that's very, very fulfilling.
Okay, thanks very much. I want to go back to, not sure actually who wants to pick this one up. We've got another question that says, a lot of us did not have access to mentors that could shape and guide our careers at GCSE level. How do we get around that? I'm not sure if anyone wants to pick that up.
I guess I can start, and then maybe others can follow.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I emphasise it's very difficult when you're at GCSE level to be exposed to people who are beyond the school environment. And one of the things that I would recommend as I go back to sort of using the institutes in the UK. So again, from the example of the Institute of Physics, they have a 16 to 19-year-old student membership option. So you can have the chance to interact with other young physicists in the UK and also get updates on what's new. And that itself has a mentoring and networking aspect to it, because a lot of the students then have access to meetings organised by the Institute of Physics and their open access evening seminars in London. So there's some example there from the physics perspective, but I know that similar programs exist in the Royal Society of Chemistry and other biology areas. So that's one way in which you could start to make connections. Sometimes also with like the Royal Institution lectures, if you attend something like that, then you're able to meet people who are beyond the school environment. I would hope, although having said that, you would find teachers who can be inspiring to you and help you in thinking about your career development. I certainly was lucky enough to have a couple of teachers who were very interested in my career development plan and would be able to give me advice and feedback on things that I was coming up with when I was at school.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think there is a lot more focus on working with schools. Certainly here at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, we're doing a lot more partnerships with schools. In fact, we've launched something called Inspiring the Future program, where all employees are volunteers in schools to be aspirational mentors, so they go in and effectively talk about career choices. we're hosting a lot more internal fairs to invite schools who are that really important trajectory of thinking around their GCSEs to actually come and get to know our industry, because a lot of students, once they get to university, start to opt out of certain career paths because they don't feel they can actually transfer their courses to them, when actually the reality is you can choose whatever you want to do. Companies will be crying out for all of your skill sets, but you also need to be aware of all of the opportunities out there to make the most of them. So I think things are getting much better in terms of partnership with corporations and schools, and really understanding that we all have a role to play, not only us as individuals and the teachers, and whenever you give back as well as you start to make your transition into academia. But I think it's going to get a lot easier. But I'd say my big piece of advice is really explore all of the great opportunities out there, because if you do a lot of investigation, you can actually access a lot more kind of networks and things that are out there. But I think it's just knowing how to tap into them.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think I understand how difficult it is when you're making these career choices and you want some guidance. I think it's great that the mentorship scheme like at Stemettes exists. You could also consider, as Sarah suggested, going to lectures. So within engineering, the IMechE, as well as the IET, the Institute of Engineering and Technology, host lectures at Royal Institute as well in London, and they have certain lectures that are webcasted. So you could also sort of develop a kind of dialogue with folks in industry. There's also certainly, if you have a particular interest and particular question, if you want to explore options around work experiences, etc., you could talk about your interest to friends and families, even teachers. Ask your school about perhaps code clubs. There are several of us who volunteer to go teach coding at schools and universities and colleges as well, and it has been an opportunity for quite a few schools to engage with engineers and actually understand, set up a dialogue about how can different skills be developed. There's also public events like the Big Bang Fair, and I know Stemettes were there last year. That's also a great opportunity to go and actually meet people working in different fields of both research and industry. And you may also want to check out, where you can get information about local companies from a local science centre. So an example of that would be at Bristol or Cambridge Science Centre, and they can sometimes organise events where there's an opportunity to meet with experts from different areas of STEM fields.
Okay, fantastic. So we've come up to 7 o'clock now, and I'm worried that some people were needing to drop off. If you do have any further questions, then either email them to us and we can forward them onto our speakers for this evening, or tweet them with the hashtag STS14, and we'll be able to answer them. Just last thing to do to say before we finish up, I want to say thank you very much to Dee, to Sarah and to B for giving up their evenings and joining us on what is actually quite a nice evening outside. So they could have been outside lounging around, maybe having a glass or something, but they decided to be online with us and to share their time. So thank you very much, ladies. The next webinar is happening on the 20th of August, and you can find details on the Stemettes website, the Stemettes.com.